everybody.
Hi, welcome back.
Welcome back. So I love that. So today is December the 13th. I know, right? December 13th. I know. It's almost Christmas. Yeah, it's December 13th. So here we go. And I want to see, what do you think? What is this? What do you think that could be?
It's like one of my tests.
It does look like a piece of paper, like a scroll maybe. One of your tests. That's an interesting comparison. Well, let's put our star right here on today for December 13th. And we're going to see what we're going to learn about today in God's Christmas story. So remember, we've been talking all the way through from the very beginning about how this is God's love story for his people, right? So let's see, from the very beginning, this is God's story to the world. And he got started out with us in the world. And that's how it all began. And then how God started over, because God never gives up on us. And how God gives us big promises. And he always sees us even when we're sad. And he chooses the most unlikely people. But he always gives us the dream to follow him. And he gives us important jobs to do. And as long as we are obedient to do that job, we will have the success, right? But we can't do it by ourselves. We learned about that with Saul. We can't do it by ourselves. We want to have God's heart, like David did. We want to be obedient to God and hear what God has to say. Because God will always prove himself. He always proves himself like he did with Elijah, because God is God, right? He is bigger. Well, today we are going to talk about another prophet, one of my favorites. So it's God's forever plan. So this is like God's forever story, but we're going to talk about God's forever plan today. So yesterday we talked about God's special messenger Elijah. That's what we talked about yesterday. And he wasn't the only one that God sent to give messages to his people. Remember we said that people that God gave special messages to were called prophets. So Elijah wasn't the only prophet. No, God sent prophet after prophet after prophet because he was trying to get the message to his people that I'm here, listen to me, come back to me, trust in me. But all the prophets were very different. Some were poor, some were rich, some were old, some were young. Some knew they'd be prophets their whole lives. And some were surprised when God asked them to be prophets. One prophet named Jeremiah, he was very surprised that he was going to be a prophet. He got an interesting nickname called the Weeping Prophet. Why do you think he was called the Weeping Prophet? Well, that might not sound like a nickname you'd like, to be honest. Jeremiah probably didn't like it very much either. But Jeremiah knew that when God gave you a message, that you have to share it, whether it makes you laugh or makes you cry. And that's why he was called the Weeping Prophet, because every time he was saying something, it was going to be bad news. Like he was just crying all the time. But this was a serious time with God's people. Because remember, they were choosing not to follow him. And they were choosing not to trust in him. And if they weren't trusting in God, then it seemed like God was very far away. Most of the messages that God gave Jeremiah made his people cry. Jeremiah warned them that if they kept pushing God away, then he would actually leave. Jeremiah warned them that if they kept ignoring God, God might ignore them and their prayers. Now, Jeremiah warned them that if they didn't listen to God, God would send them far away from their homes. But with every message, Jeremiah cried too. And God cried too. He didn't want to be separated from his people. He didn't want them to be sent away either. But he also knew that if he didn't do something, then his people would never come back to him. So one dark day, God sent an army to destroy the temple. Remember the temple that we learned about that Solomon built for God? To show God that they were always going to serve him? Well, one day, this other army, people that did not believe in God and did not like God's people, they went and they destroyed God's temple, and they took God's people away from their homes. The poor, the rich, the old, the young, even the king, even Jeremiah. They took everybody from their home. Living so far away from their homes and so far away from each other, God's people began to realize that they were also far from God. And now they were ready for God to send them a different message. It was a message that made them laugh. And Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, was the one who got to deliver the message from God. This is the message that Jeremiah sent. It was a letter from God himself. It says, "My children, you are far from home now and far from me. I've got bad news. I've got good news. And I've got better news. The bad news is you're going to stay away for a long time. You won't come home this month or this year or even this decade. So you need to make yourself at home where you are. Go ahead and get comfortable because you're going to be there for a minute. Build yourself a house, start a family, plant a garden. You'll need all of them. The good news is that as odd as it sounds, I'm going to do something good while you're away. I'm going to make your neighbors, who don't look anything like you, turn to me. So I'm going to make the people that aren't like you, they're going to be able to hear me also. Because of the way that you're going to treat your neighbors, the way you're going to love them, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to show God's love to everybody around us. Because of the way that you love the people around you, people from different nations are going to know me. And that's not all. Remember he said bad news, good news, and even better news. He said that even better news is that this won't last forever either. Does it feel like you're all alone? Yes. Does it feel like my plans aren't working anymore? Sometimes. But it's not the case. I'm still with you. And I still have a plan. Not just a today plan, but a tomorrow plan too. In fact, it's a forever one. And it's a good one. It's a plan that will take all the wrong and make it right. And all the dark and make it light. It's a plan to bring you back to me. So come back to me. Talk to me. Call on me and I will answer you. Come back to me and I'll come back to you. And when I do, you'll remember what another prophet said. Emmanuel, which means God with us, right? Jeremiah may have been the weeping prophet, but he knew one thing, that God was with him. Even when it was hard, even when he was crying, even when people stopped listening to him, even when the temple got destroyed, God was with Jeremiah. But so far from home, God did seem far away. Jeremiah began to hope and to pray, God, will you come back to stay? Well, God was with Jeremiah, and God is with us too, isn't he? We'll see you tomorrow.